Hang on, hang on. Anyway, good morrow, scholars. Welcome to, well, okay. I've been putting this off for as long as I can because Miga refuses to watch the movie, but also because we tend to do movie reviews together, especially on the Gotham City Critics channel. Although, in my defense, or in our defense, I review movies in our videos. He goes off on tangent. Sorry, Miga. Anyway, so I'm going to do somewhat of a review of Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens. Now, this isn't going to be like, oh, I loved it, or oh, I hated it, or it was stupid, it was amazing, it was the best movie ever, whatever. I gave the movie an 8.5. Now, everyone thinks that's low, which it really isn't, obviously, out of 10. But they were expecting me to say 9.5 or 10 just because I love Star Wars. I'm obsessed with Star Wars. I have so many lightsabers. I have so many memories growing up just watching Star Wars all day, every day, reading the books, listening to my mom talk about when she was a girl and first went to go see them, and how she and I, during our respective childhoods, both imagined Luke Skywalker finding us and taking us on an adventure. Although, I guess in her case, it was really more out of infatuation, because she still got a thing for Mark Hamill. Me, I really wanted a dad. Anyway, before we get too depressing, let's, okay. Now, I did love the movie, I'm not gonna lie, but I don't really want this to be a review so much as a discussion. So, alright, there's a lot of unanswered questions in the movie, and spoilers in case you don't want any before I go into huge detail about the movie. Okay, so let's get the first few things out of the way. Yes, I do think Rey is Luke's daughter. No, I don't think Snoke is Plagueis. And let's see, what's the biggest... I think those were actually the two biggest things. And I don't think Kylo Ren, the Knights of Ren, or General Snoke and all them over there with the dark side are Sith. So let's get those things out of the way. Because let's face it, those aren't really theories so much as everybody saying what they want and whatnot. I actually was in a discussion with my friend Josh. You remember from those those few videos. He and his friends were discussing Star Wars, and Josh was thinking something that I thought 2 weeks before him, but you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. That Snoke and them aren't Sith, but Dark Jedi. And I think this might be more on point with what J.J. Abrams is going for. It would explain why Kylo Ren is seen using Force Stasis rather than Force Choke. That's what keeps you frozen. It could also explain why he was able to freeze the blaster bolt in midair, even though Darth Vader could only deflect it away from him. You remember. Although he did absorb that one blast. They're two different powers working two different ways. But from another point of view, you could say that he was able to do that because he is actually stronger than Darth Vader. He just doesn't know it yet. We'll just have to wait and see what happens there. I personally, I think that he is stronger than Vader, but only because Vader was, you know, weakened. What with the suit and the loss of his limbs and everything. If Vader were if he were still Anakin Skywalker, you know, whole, he would be stronger. But yeah, anyway, that's not important right now. I say they are Dark Jedi or some other because we forget. We only ever seem to hear about the Jedi and the Sith and their war against each other. And interesting fact, way back in the day, like a long time ago, from them. Way before Yoda was even born, there was a point in history called the Jedi Civil War, And it was called that not because the Jedi Order split in two and fought against each other, but because so many people couldn't see a difference between the Jedi and the Sith. They thought they were the same thing fighting against each other. So, you know, keep that in mind. Now, I say they're Dark Jedi, Josh thinks they're Dark Jedi, and his friend, the shortest one who's not very bright and very loud, I call him Plankton, he refuses to believe anything other than they're Sith 100% all the way. They're doing Sith teachings, they have Force techniques like that, and even though the evidence isn't nearly there to support his theory. Now, it could be, since they're the Knights of Ren or something else, they could be something completely different from Dark Jedi, and I'd be perfectly fine with that. Like I was saying before I distracted myself, we only hear about Jedi and Sith. There are so many other Force users with a different organization there that we never hear about really, except in like very standalone cases. So that's one of the things I'm hoping gets answered, whether or not they're Dark Jedi, Sith, something else entirely. Because if you remember Maz, she says she's seen evil take many forms, and she mentions the Sith by name. And she's the first character to do that from the original trilogy in the timeline to the present, which would be Episode 7. The only character to refer to them as the Sith. And she doesn't say that the First Order and Snoke and them are Sith. She makes a distinction between them and the Sith. So that's why I'm pretty sure they're not going to be Sith. And I hope they're not, but if they are, and it's done well, I'll accept it. Now, speaking of Kylo Ren earlier, do I think he's gonna be able to redeem himself? Huge spoilers, by now everybody knows. When Kylo Ren murders his father, Han Solo, he lightsabers him through the chest, and he falls over. Now, he does this, and it reminded me of this one episode of Supernatural, and I've talked about it, I think, in a couple of my videos. In this episode of Supernatural, Sam had to kill his father so that he could never have his soul be put back inside his body. And he makes a point of saying, my father's dead, and the angel who told him what to do in order to do this, he said, you need the blood of the father, but the father needn't be blood. In this case, soulless Sam had to kill Bobby, who was a father to them, or, well, to him mostly, but, you know, to both of them. Spoilers, in case you didn't see that. Sorry, I didn't think about that. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure that's what's happened with Kylo Ren. He's murdered his father in cold blood, and although the short-term mental despair that he was going through after the fact, you know, you can see he's very much tormented right there. It's just because it's fresh. Once the dark side has taken hold of him, it'll be gone and he'll be wiped clean, and there won't be, in my mind, a way for him to be redeemed back to the light. That's my theory. My friend Travis, I don't know if he'd be mad if I mentioned him by name. I don't know your last name, so I guess it's not too big of a deal. He says that Kylo Ren should still be able to come back, even with this. And he gave me a very good plot scenario in which one could. Let's say Snoke is Plagueis. The Sith have an ability to transfer their consciousness to another body and take it over. And they expel the original consciousness, effectively killing them. I think they just join with the Force, but I don't remember. Anyway, let's say that's him. Snoke would then try and do that with Kylo Ren's body, and there would be a struggle within, and Kylo Ren could be redeemed once he realizes that he was just being used and everything he did wasn't truly him, but rather the machinations of this long-range schemer that is Snoke. And together with Luke and Leia, expel him from his body, and then he could be redeemed, much like Vader. only in much more direct fashion rather than a mental turmoil that we see from outside during Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And I'd be perfectly fine with that. But failing that, or if they go a different route altogether, I say that Kylo Ren cannot be redeemed just because he doesn't want to be. And that's where I stand on that. Why don't you guys let me know? I don't want to keep this video too long, just because. Let's see. Oh, do you guys think that Finn could be Force sensitive? There's a scene where he's about to board that ship with those two aliens and go to the Outer Rim to hide. And he hears screaming and crying, and then he looks up and he sees the beam of energy shooting across the star, or across the sky. Now, I think the screams he heard weren't the people shouting in surprise and despair and shock, because if you look around and you see them, they're not really shouting in a way that would make sense, one doing the other. I think he was actually hearing their cries as they're about to die, and that's what made him look up. Because he doesn't even look around at everybody else, or at least as far as I can remember. It's been a while since I've had a chance to see the movie again, but I'm going to see it soon. But as far as I know, he looks immediately up in the right direction. So I think he's Force sensitive. Oh, that leads me into a good point. Rey. A lot of people have been complaining, and I know, I have to talk about it, I guess. Complaining about how she's a Mary Sue, which is a character who is great at everything without having to work at it. She does all this. Everybody loves her. She's perfect. It doesn't have to be a she. It could be a guy. It could be a Mary Sue. I think they call him Gary Stews, though. Anyway, that's not important. If we look at the beginning of the movie, with her, anyway, we can see her. She's working on dismantling sections of a Star Destroyer. And as we can see, the First Order is relatively the same in terms of technology as the Empire was 30 years prior. Now, my friend Travis pointed out, because I mentioned how people hate that, because like in the last 30 years they haven't made any more technological advancements. I'm like, I mean, I understand why they have a problem with that, and I understand this and that. But Travis, thank goodness I can talk to him. He's a smart guy. He pointed out, just because we have different technologies today from what we used for episodes 4 through 6 doesn't mean they would have those, even though they have a lot of other things. And he mentioned about the singularity. They've reached their point where they can advance no further. They can't. Just because they didn't doesn't mean we can't, or just because we can doesn't mean they can. Look it up. It's actually all very fascinating if you read up on this stuff. Anyway, so it makes sense that she'd be able to dismantle ships and work on various different things that we see her do in the movie. Another thing, people complained about her being able to fly the Millennium Falcon. Spoilers. However, now we know for a fact she was using the Force to do that. I mean, you remember Luke's first time in an X-Wing, don't you? Yeah. He blew up the Death Star. Compared to that, Rey being able to fly that ship in the atmosphere of a planet is not that unheard of. Plus, she runs into a lot of things anyway, so it's not like she just immediately became an ace pilot. Another thing, her fight with Kylo Ren at the end, people have been complaining about that. Whereas, if you actually do watch the fight, unlike Josh's friend, if you actually watch the fight, you see she's using the lightsaber initially the same way she uses her staff. She's got very wide, what do you call it, lunges going on, and it's very unbalanced, and she's not really focused. She's not, what do you call it? Well, she's not using the lightsaber properly, which is true. But as you see her fighting more and more in that little fight, because Kylo Ren is toying with her, but not just that, he just got shot, and he fought with Finn, and I'll get to that in a minute. He's technically showing her how to wield a lightsaber. Now, if you remember in episodes 5 and 6, Luke versus Vader, it's very interesting that Vader ended up being the one to teach Luke how to fight with a lightsaber. If you follow Star Wars as much as I do, Darth Vader's main fighting style with a lightsaber is Form 5, Gemso. Luke's only seen that in regards to lightsaber combat. So naturally, it would be his go-to techniques. Vader ended up teaching him in his initial encounter, and then Luke was able to, I want to say, reverse engineer a way to continue learning how to wield a lightsaber in that way. And you see Rey, as she's fighting, she's getting much more graceful with her actions, and she's not copying Kylo Ren, but you can tell that she's definitely learning like the balance, where to go, what to do, how to move. And then once she allows the Force, because she's fighting against it initially, to funnel through her, I guess you could say, and fight with the flow of the Force rather than against it, you can see she's much more adept at lightsaber combat. Initially, you could say it's just because she's relatively fresh and unhurt. She's faster than him, so she's able to block his attacks and just outlast him because he's just got too much damage and too much pain. And another thing about him when he's smacking his side, one, the dark side uses pain to increase their fighting ability, but also he's probably getting frostbite. And you don't have to, but people do that in order to get feeling back in their extremities and whatnot. So let's say he's feeling the frostbite, so he would be slowing down. He's trying to speed himself back up. Now, I believe, and Travis is actually the one who pointed this out, because of her visions that she had, she must have been trained, at least as a child, before she went into hiding, or was left in hiding, I guess would be the proper way to say that. I feel like she had some teachings in the Force, and that's why she was sent away, because it was too dangerous for her. And I'm saying Luke was training her because he's really the only one. But I think that he put some sort of a mental block on her so that she would not be able to access the Force and not remember how to use the Force until such a time as that block came undone. Which is what happens with Kylo Ren when he does the mind probe on her. He activated her latent Force teachings, and that's what allowed her to progress so quickly and get things so easily. Now, in regards to Finn, when he's fighting with Kylo Ren, and this will probably be the last thing, I'll go over a couple of things about what I didn't like about the movie, if I can think of anything. People have been complaining about Finn fighting Kylo Ren and holding his own. Well, if you remember, like I keep mentioning Episode 5, Darth Vader was toying with Luke. And Finn and Kylo Ren's fight plays almost the same way. He's just kind of there. You can see him. He's doing just, one-handed. He's not taking it seriously. And Finn's just barely being able to block and try and attack and then get parried and whatnot. And then everything changes in the Fire Nation attack. When Finn, Luke, gets a lucky little swipe on the shoulder. And if I remember correctly, it's actually the same shoulder. And then, in both times with Vader and with Kylo Ren, they immediately ended that fight. Vader by cutting off Luke's hand, and, that leads to Finn getting the lightsaber 30 years later. Well, I guess 31 years later? Anyway. And then Finn, smacked across and turned around, gets slashed on the back, although I think he went that way, didn't he? Anyway, that's not important. But also, that one stormtrooper with the stun baton, I forget the name, so forgive me. Why can't I ever remember that name of the weapon? Anyway, so it's able to deflect lightsabers. It's a good basis for Finn to be able to figure out how to use a lightsaber. You know, just kind of, not in reverse, but you know what I mean. Like, he knows how to defend against lightsabers. We know for a fact, because that stormtrooper was way too passionate about calling him a traitor, and we know they're from the same troop. Mm-hmm. We know that for a fact. It's been stated. So, Finn's able to use a lightsaber because he knows how to defend against lightsabers. It's not perfect, but it was enough to get him to fight long enough for Rey to regain consciousness. Even though when Kylo Ren's, completely focused on ending the fight, he had no chance. Everything was going against Kylo Ren at this point. The Force is actively keeping them alive while weakening him. Okay, so one thing I didn't like about the movie, but at the same time I did like about the movie, is that we don't get to see Luke until the very end. And spoilers. And it was...
Spoilers after you spoil it?
Well, I did spoil, or I said spoil at the start of the video,
okay,
but no, the joke is that I say spoilers afterward.
Okay.
I don't know why I do that. Anyway, that's not important.
I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, I do what I can. I should get ready for work soon. Dang it. Dang it.
But, people were complaining about his seemingly knowledge of lightsaber combat against other stormtroopers. But they both had the same kind of training, and he was just using whatever he knew.
And that stormtrooper was better than him, because he won, so it's not like it was that big of a deal. I mean, he's getting lightsaber training there, and then with Kylo Ren, he's able to... He has... He was actually the #1 stormtrooper in his class. I ate something, it was really spicy, it's stuck in my throat.
Finn doesn't really have much battle experience. Was that his first time actually on the field?
He has battle experience. He just doesn't kill people. Mm-hmm. That one trooper that puts the handprint on him and then dies, they actually work together. He helps him not fail.
Yeah.
And then he kills all of the civilians that Finn can't bring himself to kill. Mm-hmm. It was his first, real mission. Like, they had practice missions and stuff like that, but, they were there to kill, but that was the first actual one. Anyway, before this video gets too long, I have to finish eating, and then I have to get dressed for work, because I don't think I have a ride. This video was going a lot longer than it should have. Okay, so I didn't like that Luke wasn't present until the end of the movie, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense, because... Like J.J. Abrams said initially, this is about this new generation and help from the old generation. So it's kind of like the inverse of what happened with Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 4. Spoilers. I remembered this time. He died towards the beginning of the movie. Well, I guess about halfway through. Almost. Although George Lucas found a way for him to come back, much to his distaste. That is to say, Alec Guinness. Now, Luke will have a huge role, I'm sure, in the next movie. Whether or not he dies remains to be seen. I don't think he will, just because they've already killed Han. I already mentioned that. It was a spoiler. So let me know your thoughts on the movie. Whether or not I helped with any problems you had with it. If you have any theories about what Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren and Snoke might be. Oh, and do any of you know what Grey Jedi are? If you do, let me know down in the comments. And if you do, I will give you a shout out. Because that one friend of Josh's had no idea. Oh my gosh, he's a good guy. He's nice enough. He's just an idiot. Shh. Don't tell Josh I said that. I feel bad. Anyway, until next time. Goodbye, everybody. I'm gonna get so much flack.